I've been waiting. Sunshine, why you playing? With my head on the time, you go way out of line.
Hey, it's your girl Serene, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome to my channel. Thank you for visiting. Stop by back again. And while you're here, go ahead and subscribe and join in all the informal and fun things that happen. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up, share, because sharing is caring. Comment if you feel the need to. I'm fine with that. And don't forget to hit that notification bell on your way out so you can be made aware every time I upload a video. Thanks in advance. So, today we're doing the weekly update for the George Floyd federal case. And starting from the beginning of last week, the first person we heard from was a lung expert by the name of Dr. David Systrom. I may not be saying this right, and if not, I apologize. He is a pulmonologist, and basically he testified that he said that Floyd's, and I quote, upper airway was compressed by Officer Derek Chauvin's knee while his position on the hard asphalt with his hands cuffed behind his back did not allow his lungs to expand, cutting off the flow of oxygen. Therefore, oxygen delivered to the heart and brain is critical to survive, and at that point it was being cut off from him with Chauvin's knee on the back. He also went into stating that since he was put on the ground at the time that this happened, it did not allow his lung to expand to take in more air. So he pretty much suffocated, is what the lung expert is saying. Was pretty much the point of the lung doctor expert. After him, they had a juror they had to dismiss because his son was sick. So we lost one of the jurors. And then we had a toxicologist testified after that. A Dr. Vic Barta. Again, if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, I apologize. They testified next, and according to them, Floyd died because of how I'm quoting this, how Officer Derek Chauvin pressed his knee down on the black man's neck for 9.5 minutes as he pled, "I can't breathe." He also backed up other experts who have fault officers for failing to roll Floyd on his side as they had been trained so that he could have breathed freely. Because if he was rolled over on his side, then his lungs would have been able to take in more air to breathe. By them not doing that, again, according to the expert, it pretty much cut off his air circulation going to the lungs, which would have went to the brain, and he suffocated. And so he pretty much, stated the same thing. By his air being cut off, he couldn't breathe, the oxygen couldn't get to his brain, and he pretty much suffocated to death. He also agreed that the medical field do not have a real meaning for the excited delirium condition that was brought up by Thomas Lane when he was asking Derek Chauvin, shouldn't we roll him on his side? I believe he could be suffering from excited delirium. Open quote, end quote. That's what Thomas Lane has said to Chauvin, who insisted on no. And he said, we're going to stay this way until the ambulance comes. That's what Derek Chauvin said to Thomas Lane, again, opening end quote. At that point. So, after that, we had a lieutenant testify next. And basically, this is Lieutenant Richard Zimmerman. Now, he testified in Derek Chauvin case also. And he said, open quote, "If you see another officer using too much force or doing something illegal, you need to intervene and stop it." End quote. So, that was his point. He also added that the duty can also mean intervening to begin first aid if another officer fails to give it, and that it could mean moving that officer out of the way if necessary, which goes back to what I said. I feel if Lane and them really had cared to help Floyd and really felt he was seriously in danger and dying, y'all could have pushed him off of Floyd. Y'all could have all got up, which I think would have made Derek Chauvin stand up, possibly. To say, we're going to roll him on the side. I think this fella is really in danger. He's hurting, maybe, we need to roll him on the side. Something. But instead, y'all just kept asking questions, but remained in the same position, which allowed him to die. Back to the testifying. They asked him what Chauvin was doing that was significant to him, and Zimmerman replied, "The knee on the neck. The officer should have intervened at that point and stopped it. It can be deadly." And again, this is something he said that they trained for. He said he joined the department in 1985. Said he's been aware of the duty to intervene since he first became a law enforcement officer 41 years ago. Zimmerman also testified in Chauvin. We already know he did that. So, yeah, he stated and they was taught about intervening since he first started the force 41 years ago, according to him. He also stated from the defense who wants to come back with the fact that Derek Chauvin was the senior officer on the scene, and he stated that, but rank and seniority don't change the duty to intervene, Zimmerman said. The policy applies to every officer in the city from the chief on down. We all wear the same badge. Hello? It's called common sense, people. Common sense. He also discussed his interviews with the officers immediately after Floyd's killing. They showed a video of him questioning Lane and King about what happened, and they recounted the struggle to get him in the car and getting him out the car, and about the fake $20 bill, but never informed him. They also told him it seemed like he was on something, and that he was fighting the whole time. But he never said, neither one of them ever said anything to him about Floyd being kept on the ground without rolling him over, and about Chauvin keeping his knee on on Floyd's neck. They never said nothing to him about not being able to find a pulse, or about Lane performing CPR in the ambulance. So they never said any of these things when they were interviewed by him after knowing Floyd was dead. So on cross-examination, basically Zimmerman admitted that in the video he heard Lane say that he think he's passing out. He also remembered King telling Lane he couldn't find a pulse. According to Earl Grey, he asked him, they've been doing pretty much everything that they're taught, right? And Zimmerman agreed, but elaborated when the prosecutor came back to ask about that point that Earl Grey asked him, and he elaborated by saying intervening means doing something, not suggesting. Then when what's his name, King's attorney got up to question him, which his defense lawyer, which is Thomas Plunkett, he got Zimmerman to acknowledge that he told the FBI investigators he thought poorly of Chauvin, and that open quote, I think it's pretty much known throughout the department that he's a jerk, end quote. Zimmerman agreed that a jerk probably shouldn't be a field training officer, as Chauvin had been to King. So, I guess he did have some personal feelings towards Chauvin, which I don't know why they brought it up, because how was that helpful for their clients? He didn't have no personal ill will towards them, just Chauvin. And he testified in Chauvin case. And that's over. He convicted. But anywho, next to come up to the stand is a chief of police of Mendota Heights, which is Kelly McCarthy. She is also the chair of Minnesota's Police Officer Standards and Training Board. And she said that basically King, Lane, and Tao were all licensed officers in Minnesota and described training every officer must receive. She also said officers also are specifically taught to reposition someone who is restrained face down to ensure they can breathe. When asked why, she said, open quote, there were enough in custody deaths that we needed to have a learning objective on it, end quote. They also supposed to show a video, I believe, of this training on Friday and provide the jury with transcripts of, I guess, what's going to be said in there so they can hear, know exactly what's being said throughout the video. They continue on with her. Officers, she said the officers should have intervened to stop Chauvin. And that could mean intervening to begin first aid, or even mean moving an officer out of the way if necessary. And basically her and Zimmerman both agreed that the knee on the neck, the officers should have intervened at that point and stopped it. It can be deadly. So once they saw Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck, they saying that all three of them officers should have intervened at that point right then and there, because that's what the training was taught for them to do. And that rank and seniority don't change the duty to intervene. Period. They also agreed on that. So that was pretty much it for both of them. The next person to take the stand was the 17-year-old. And this was on Friday. And basically, well, she's 17 now, but at the time that this happened, no, she was 17 then when this happened, and now she's 19. Anywho, she said that she knew instantly the black man was in distress as he screamed in pain and shouted that he couldn't breathe. Her point was that she could tell from the start he actually was really in pain and that something was wrong. And he needed help. And that's why she started recording. They also showed snippets of the videos that she had recorded and some of the other past standby people who was standing by had recorded. They show snippets from each of those also. She had drove past and saw 3 officers on top of a man in the street. She said she parked her car, left it running, got out and started recording because she had a gut feeling something was wrong. She said she heard screaming and yelling and instantly knew that he was in distress. He was moving, making facial expressions that he was in pain. He was telling us that he was in pain. And again, they played the video that she had recorded also. Both women also said they had observed that over time he was slowly being less vocal and he was closing his eyes. One of them testified, open quote, he wasn't able to tell us that he was in pain anymore. He was just accepting it, end quote. She also admitted that she did not see Tao provide any medical assistance to Floyd. She testified that she saw King check Floyd's pulse twice. And when the prosecutor tried to ask if she saw Lane provide medical aid, they had met that with an objection. So on cross-examination, Tao's attorney, who is Robert Pauley, he tried to get her to state that Tal may have not known what was going on behind him because he was more in front, trying to keep the crowd back. And she stated, no, he knew because you could hear it. And she said that when the ambulance came, Tal was just standing there and never moved, and that the crowd was calm at that point once the ambulance showed up. Then we had the chairperson of the Minnesota agency that sets licensing standards for police officers testify that the 3 officers would have received training about constitutional rights and on providing first aid. And this is when they went through the video of the training that they would receive, and you know what all they had to sign for it and all of that, what all they had to do to show that they did the training and all of that for that. And that's pretty much what the weeks for that. And basically here we go with my thought and opinion. Again, I can't emphasize this as much. Okay, I don't know how much I can emphasize this, but the bottom line is I don't understand, even if you're not an officer, those people that was standing there recording and hollering and yelling and trying to help Floyd had no training. We can agree with that, right? They had no training. Only one person standing there had medical training. And the rest had none. But yet, all these people clearly see this man is definitely dying. And these officers who went through all this training continued on as if that just was not happening. And this is the issue I have with it. I don't care what kind of training you've had. Common sense should have kicked in at some point. Period. 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 The prosecution did rest a case, which would have been this Monday. Today is Tuesday. When you're gonna get this video today on Tuesday, but Monday the prosecution did rest a case, and they did state, the defense did state that Tal and Lane will be testifying on their own behalf. They're saying they believe that Tal is testifying because he actually has a record of complaints of using excessive force. So, again, we now know for a fact we have 2 officers who had complaints in their background that they use excessive force on a regular. Training 2 new officers. I don't know how they select their training officers, but I'm thinking they needed... Camera got hot. Anywho, as I was saying, if they need to change how they decide an officer should be a training officer, because if you have a training officer who has complaints, multiple complaints on their jacket, that means they're passing down their badness to new officers. That's a bad idea if you're asking me, because now you ended up with a force with a bunch of bad officers doing bad things, because all the officers done trained them this is the thing to do, regardless of what they learned before they got there. Apparently they need to look into that, change that, period. And again, like I said, common sense to me should have kicked in. Period. There's no excuse to me for that man dying and all of them pretty much just sitting on him. Period. So that's for this week, for the George Floyd case. So if you made it to the end of my video, thank you very much for caring. And please do not forget to subscribe, thumbs up, share, hit that notification bell on your way out. And if you feel the need, go ahead and leave a comment down there in your world. That's what I'm going to call the comments, your world. And thank you again and have a wonderful evening. Mwah.
I swear I give you my tomorrow, forever and now. I'll never bring you sorrow.